The day my son left me sitting in a hospital chair and said, "Mom, I'll be right back," I didn't know I was hearing a sentence that would live inside me for years. I remember everything about those few seconds: the way he squeezed my hand, the tired look in his eyes, the quick kiss he gave my forehead before turning away. I remember the sound of his boots against that shiny hospital floor. I remember watching him disappear down the hallway and thinking nothing of it. People say pain comes all at once. That's not true. Sometimes pain arrives slowly. Sometimes it sits down beside you in a cold waiting room and lets the clock do the damage. I waited 1 hour, then two, then more than I could count. Nurses changed shifts, the vending machines hummed, the hallway emptied and filled and emptied again, but my son never came back. If this story touches you in any way, subscribe to the channel and stay with me until the end. I'm 78 years old. I have buried my husband, worked through fevers, stitched clothes by lamplight, and gone without so my child wouldn't have to. But nothing hurt me the way that chair did. Nothing hurt me the way waiting for my own son did. My name is Evelyn Harper. I was born and raised in rural Kentucky, where the roads are long, the porches are wide, and people can know your name for 30 years without ever knowing your sorrow. I was a seamstress most of my life. I hemmed church dresses, patched school jeans, repaired work shirts, and made prom alterations for girls too excited to stand still. My hands raised my son as much as my heart did. Every stitch I took, every extra hour I worked, every dollar I saved was for him. His name is Daniel. He was my only child. After my husband died young, it was just me and that boy. I still remember him sleeping with one hand curled around my finger when he was little. When he got older, he became the kind of son people talk about with pride. He carried groceries, fixed leaky faucets, and never left my porch without saying, "Love you, Mom." That is why what happened broke me so deeply. Not because a stranger had turned away, but because it was Daniel, my boy, the one I trusted with the last safe pieces of my heart. When my health started failing, I moved in with him and his wife, Karen. It was supposed to be temporary. That's what I told myself. I tried to stay useful. I folded laundry, dried dishes, swept a little when my legs allowed it. Daniel always told me to sit down and rest. Karen smiled with her mouth, but not with her eyes. There are kinds of tension that never raise their voice, but they still fill a house. Karen was never openly cruel in front of Daniel. She was too careful for that. But she had a way of saying small things that settled into my chest like stones. She'd laugh and say the house felt more like a nursing home now. She'd sigh when my medicine bottles covered too much of the kitchen counter. She'd ask Daniel, in that low, sharp voice some women use, how long this arrangement was supposed to last. I pretended not to hear most of it. Older women get good at pretending. We learn how to shrink our hurts so we don't become another burden in a room already full of them. A few days before the hospital, I heard them arguing behind their bedroom door. I couldn't make out every word, but I heard my name, I heard money, I heard Karen say, "We can't keep doing this." The next morning, Daniel barely touched his coffee. He tried to smile at me, but worry was all over his face. I asked him if something was wrong. He said no. He said he was just tired. That same afternoon, I passed out near the kitchen sink. When I opened my eyes, I was in the passenger seat of his truck. He was gripping the steering wheel hard, driving fast toward the county hospital, telling me I was going to be okay. I wanted to believe him. I really did. Hospitals all feel the same to me: too bright, too cold, too full of sounds you can't place and don't want to hear again. They checked my blood pressure, ran blood tests, asked me questions I could barely answer. I was weak and lightheaded, but I could still see Daniel moving between the front desk and my chair. He kept pushing his hand through his hair, kept looking back at me. He did not look like a man trying to leave his mother behind. He looked scared. After a while, a nurse told us I would need to stay for observation. Daniel bent down in front of me and spoke softly, like he used to when I was sick years ago. He said, "Mom, I'm going to step out and take care of one thing. I'll be right back. Don't be scared." That was the last thing I heard from him that day. At first, I waited calmly, then uneasily, then desperately. Every pair of footsteps made me look up. Every man in a dark jacket made my heart jump. I asked a nurse if she had seen him. She said he had gone outside. Later, another nurse said she didn't know. Evening came, then night. The coffee turned bitter in the break room. The TV in the waiting area kept playing to almost nobody, and my son never walked back through that door. Somewhere in the middle of the night, a terrible thought began rising inside me. What if he wasn't coming back? The next morning, the shame hurt worse than the weakness. A hospital social worker sat beside me and asked if I had other family. I gave her my house number. No answer. I gave her Karen's cell phone. No answer there either. I remember trying to explain that my son was a good man, that something had to have happened. I was still protecting him, even while my own heart was cracking open. I stayed in that hospital for 2 days. 2 long days of pretending I still believed him. 2 days of watching the entrance. 2 days of swallowing humiliation every time someone asked whether somebody was coming to pick me up. On the third day, they discharged me. A church volunteer drove me back. When I got to the house, I knew something was wrong before I even stepped inside. The front room looked thinner somehow. The TV stand was gone. Boxes were missing. Daniel's jackets were gone from the hall closet. In the bedroom, drawers were half open and nearly empty. Even the old quilt from their bed was gone. My things were pushed into one corner like leftovers. That was the moment I truly broke. Not in the hospital, not in the waiting chair, but standing in that house, realizing life had moved on without so much as a goodbye. The months that followed were the quietest of my life. I cried very little in front of other people. That's not because I was strong, it's because some grief goes underground. It settles in your body and changes the way you move, the way you breathe, the way you sit on a porch at sunset and listen for a truck that never comes. At first, I expected him every evening. Any sound on the gravel road made me look up. Any silhouette near the mailbox made my pulse race. I kept thinking there would be a reason, an explanation, an apology, something, but nothing came. People talked, of course. Small towns always do. Some said he had run off. Some said he had chosen his wife over me. A few said maybe I had expected too much. There is always somebody willing to explain your wound to you when they have never lived inside it. Little by little, I learned how to survive the silence. I started taking in simple mending again, hemming pants, fixing sleeves, replacing zippers when my eyes were steady enough. I planted tomatoes, basil, and green beans behind the house. I made soup for myself and learned how to eat alone without breaking down every single time. If you have ever had to rebuild your life after being wounded by someone you loved, leave a like and keep listening. I survived, but surviving is not the same as healing. A part of me was still sitting in that hospital chair. Years passed. Then one rainy afternoon, when the sky was low and gray and the porch board smelled damp, somebody knocked on my front door. I opened it and found a young woman standing there, soaked through, clutching a small metal box and an old photograph in a plastic sleeve. She looked nervous enough to shake apart. She asked, "Are you Evelyn Harper?" I told her yes. Her lips trembled before she spoke again. "My name is Lily," she said. "I'm Daniel's daughter." For a moment, the whole world seemed to tilt. I knew he and Karen had a little girl once, but after the hospital, that part of my life vanished too. I had never seen her grown, never heard her voice, never imagined she would be standing on my porch like a messenger sent by the years themselves. I brought her inside. I made tea, though neither of us really drank it. She set the metal box on my kitchen table and opened it carefully. Inside were hospital papers, a police report, a wristband, old envelopes tied together with string, and on every envelope, written in Daniel's handwriting, was my name. My hands started trembling so hard, Lily had to untie the bundle for me. The truth did not come gently. The day Daniel left the hospital to take care of one thing, he had gone to pick up medication and speak with billing. On his way back across the street, he was hit by a delivery truck. He suffered a head injury. He survived, but he spent months in recovery. According to the records, he had memory damage. He asked for me more than once, but his words were confused. He couldn't remember our full address, couldn't keep the timeline straight, couldn't understand why I wasn't there. Karen was listed as his contact, and that is where the cruelty entered and stayed. Lily told me Karen lied to him. She told the doctors I had already been picked up by relatives. Later, when his memory returned in pieces, she told him I had died not long after that hospital stay. She sold what she could, moved them away, and hid every letter he wrote to me inside that metal box. Lily found them after Karen passed away. I sat there at my own kitchen table, opening letters I should have received years earlier. In one of them, Daniel had written, "Mom, if you are still out there somewhere, I never left you by choice. I am trying to find my way back." That sentence undid something in me. For years, I had believed my son had abandoned me. Now I understood that he had been stolen from me too. I asked Lily to take me to him. 2 days later, we drove to a rehabilitation center in another county. My hands stayed folded in my lap the whole ride because I was afraid if I let them loose, they would show too much. Fear, hope, anger, love, all of it had come back at once. When I stepped into that hallway and saw him, I knew him immediately. He was older, thinner, leaning on a cane, with a scar near his temple and grief all over his face. But he was mine. A mother knows. He stopped when he saw me. Then he started crying like a little boy, the kind of crying that comes from years of being held underwater. When he finally reached me, he touched my face with both hands as if he needed proof I was real. Then he whispered, "Mom, can you forgive me for taking so long?" And I said the only true thing I had left. "I waited for you." We held each other for a long time, too long for the nurses, not long enough for the years we lost. No embrace can return birthdays, lonely winters, empty chairs at Christmas, or the ache of believing you were forgotten. But that moment changed the shape of my pain. The lie that had poisoned my life finally lost its power. I still live in my little country house. The lace curtains still move when the breeze slips through. The kettle still whistles on the stove. The porch still catches the evening light the same way it always did. but I no longer watch the road with the same broken heart. Daniel visits whenever he can. He still walks slowly. He still loses a word now and then. We are both older than we should have been when we found each other again. We were robbed of too much. That part is true. But another truth is this: love can survive even when lies try to bury it. I used to think abandonment was the end of a story. Now I know sometimes it is the middle of one. Sometimes what looks like rejection is really silence wrapped around an unseen wound. Sometimes the truth takes years to reach your door. And sometimes, by the grace of God and the stubbornness of love, it still arrives. If this story stayed with you, subscribe to the channel and share it with someone who still needs hope. Because as long as we tell the truth of what we lived, not even the deepest pain gets the final word.